Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. It's Kaylan Alex. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe, become part of the tribe. Awesome and great things happen over here. And if you're returning, thank you so much for tuning in. There we go. I haven't done this in so long, you guys. I'm so excited to be back, like in my filming setup and filming a video for you guys. Yeah, it's been a journey, but we're back and better than ever. So today's video is gonna be my birth story, or yeah, I guess that's what you call it, my birth story. So it'll be the story of giving birth to baby Kari. She blessed this world and our lives in July 8th. And we're just so excited to have her here and so excited to be like parents and have a new addition to the family. So I was like, I might as well just share with you guys my experience with giving birth, because literally when people say, and I mentioned this in my previous video, that it's the closest thing to death for women, I can understand why. And like I mentioned before, like in that video, I didn't have like a crazy experience, but it was definitely something that was not, I did not plan, and it just kind of like, it kind of happened. So let's just get into the story. So I gave birth on the 8th. I went into labor July 6th, so like 2 days before I started laboring. Well, I guess like a few days before the 6th, I started feeling those like what I now know to be contractions. Good morning, guys. We are at the start of what I think may be a labor and delivery vlog. I have been having contractions for about the last week or so, but they haven't been consistent. But yesterday, I started feeling them more and more tighter. So I was like, I don't really know what this is. But then last night, I started feeling them a little bit more. And then this morning, I've been feeling them every, maybe like 10 minutes apart for the past, maybe like 10-12 minutes apart for the last hour at least, that I've been tracking it, because I just started tracking it. So I had things planned to finish like getting together. I wanted to take these last 2 eyelashes, get them taken off, but that's not gonna happen probably. So so I just put on some clothes. It is 9:13 right now, July 6th. My due date is July 9th, and this is where we at. So my grandma is making me some breakfast. So yeah, I'm gonna go and sterilize some of her bottles just to have. I had planned to do all that today, but here we are, so we'll see. At first they just felt like random, to me it felt like random cramps, or like if she would like move into an awkward position and like poke me or something. Like that's what I felt like. That's how it felt to me, and I have a high tolerance of pain, so that's why I was like expecting contractions to be something totally different. But I started feeling those, and I was like, okay, you know, I would feel it here and there. And when I would go to my appointment, my last few weeks like appointments, she hadn't like dropped to where she needed to be, you know, to be in position for me to give birth. So I was just expecting her to just either drop overnight, or I was like, okay, I might have to have a cesarean, but I want to try my best to have it to just, you know, be able to push her out. So I started feeling those random movements, but it was nothing consistent. So I would say the morning of the 6th is when I started feeling those random movements even like a little bit more, and really the night of the 5th. So I thought she was moving into an awkward position, like elbowing me or kicking me, you know, randomly. So I was like, okay, this is weird, because like, why is she just sitting here? Like, why is it just lasting? Like, this is just not normal. Why is this happening like this? But it would come and go. So I now know that those were contractions, or like Braxton Hicks, right? So the day of the 6th came, child. I started feeling those random what I thought were movements, I started feeling them a little bit more. So it would be like I would lay down and I would like feel it, and I would shift a little bit and it wouldn't really go away. It would still kind of be there and it would then go away. So I was like, okay, is she moving? I started getting like irritated, like, what is she doing to me? What is she doing? So I just kind of like ignored it, or like just kind of like dealt with it. I kept going on about my dad. I was already in full nesting mode, getting things together for her, organized for her, and trying to finish opening gifts that we had received from the baby shower, and we were still getting gifts. So I was still trying to organize everything. Well, I started feeling those movements a lot more like impactful. So I was like, okay, these might be contractions, right? Child, the day of the 6th, that morning, when I tell you I started having contractions, like they were coming that morning. I would say between 10 and 13 minutes. I called my doctor and I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to have contractions. I'm feeling what I think is a contraction coming like every 10 to 13 minutes. What should I do? When should I go to the hospital? Because my water hadn't broken, and then the last visit, which was the week before, she still wasn't low, so I was confused. So they were like, okay, just wait. If they are contractions, you want to wait until they're about 5 minutes apart and for an hour, and then go, because you don't want to be sent back home. So I was like, okay, cool. So they weren't as heavy or as strong, so I was kind of just waiting it out, where I was like, I know that they say you should walk and do different activities to try to get the baby down. So I started walking around the house. I was too tired to walk outside in that Texas heat. So I was like, I'm just gonna walk around the house. So I would walk around the house for about 30 to 45 minutes at a time, and then I would take a break. And then we have one of these exercising balls, so I would just like kind of bounce on that to get her low, because I'm thinking there's no way I'm having contractions right now, because she's not even dropped where she needs to be, and I still my water hasn't broken. So are these really contractions? Like, is this really what is happening? Because I'm not like in any excruciating pain. Like, what's happening here? But they were coming. They were coming consistently. So I just waited it out. I walked around. I had already packed my hospital bag. I was timing them at this point, and I was okay, they're starting to like calm down. So they weren't as consistent. So I was like, okay, maybe these weren't contractions. Maybe this is just some random movement, because I thought when you get contractions and you're going into labor, like all of this just starts happening, and it was chilling out. So I was like, I'm just gonna hold off for a minute. My doctor was texting me, just trying to make sure that I was okay, trying to see how my water broke. Did I go to the hospital? And I was like, no, I'm still at home. So the evening came, the sun went down, and it got cooler. So I was like, let's take a walk outside. So King and I literally walked for miles and, took a break. So I was like, I have to get my water to break. I have to get my water to break. Later that night of the 6th, I started feeling contractions coming, which they were confirmed at that point, because they were intense. I started to feel them. Well, actually, it wasn't the night. It was the night of the 6th, early morning of the 7th. So it is like 4:30 a.m. I've pretty much been laboring all day. I've been having contractions, but they started out earlier today pretty consistently, about every 7 to 13 minutes. And then they kind of like slowed down drastically. Oh, I feel like I'm having another one. So I did not go to the hospital. I was texting my doctor, and he was just like checking on me and told me that I should just wait until they're 5 minutes apart before going, so that they wouldn't send me home. So I did not go. But now it is 4:30, and I have been having consistent contractions that are about 5-6 minutes apart, sometimes shorter, but on average maybe about 5 minutes apart. And they have been pretty intense. So I am getting ready to go to the hospital. I'm gonna see what they said. I'm okay right now. I'll probably try to get a contraction so I can have like to look back on. Well, we've been admitted. I am 3 centimeters at this point, and my water broke when she went to check. So you're gonna go home with the baby, and I was like, yay! I'm like all excited, like yes, like this moment is happening. Like I honestly, I wasn't even nervous. Like I was more so like, okay, let's do this, like excited, because I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna get to meet her like the next time, like in a few hours we're gonna have a baby, or so I thought.
Yeah, so today is 7th of July 2021. We were awaiting the arrival of baby Kari Imade. Mama is awaiting. So
you already said that. Okay, so it is 2:30 p.m. We are still in the I guess you would say like the delivery room. I have an epidural.
What time we got here? We got here at 6 o'clock.
We got here at 6 a.m. All the walking that I did yesterday worked out because I came in at 3 centimeters dilated, but I think I'm only about 5. Well, I was about 5 a few hours ago. We're hoping that by 5 she'll be here so we can have her all paperwork done, wrapped up on the boob by like 6. You excited? I'm excited. I can't wait. So once we're in the room, I'm like, okay, they had the baby station set up, and we were put our stuff to the side. I'm like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Like she's gonna be right here. They're gonna do it, like we're gonna give birth in this room. Her station is already set up and ready to go. Like I'm like, okay, this is really happening. Like I'm really gonna be a mom. So it was probably around 7-8 a.m. Kinda. They were monitoring me. Still really no big movement. I hadn't dilated really. They were monitoring the baby, of course. And you know, they were just kind of waiting for her to drop a little bit more because like I said, she was still pretty high up until delivery. So I was, you know, waiting for her to drop a little bit more. So as they were monitoring me, they kind of noticed that as I would get a contraction, her heart rate would dip a little bit lower post the contraction. So it was natural for the heart rate to dip during the contraction, but it's typically the heart rate should come back up right afterwards, right? Well, her heart rate would kind of delay coming back up, so they were like kind of concerned on that. So they were closely monitoring her because they didn't know what was happening or why her heart rate would drop, you know, post the contraction when it shouldn't be. So they were like, don't worry, mom, everything would, you know, it's pretty normal. There's nothing to like concern us at this point. So I was like, okay. So time, you know, goes on, hours go on, and each contraction, her heart rate would do the same thing, or it would just drop a little bit lower than it should be and stay low too long, which wasn't a long period of time. It would be like seconds, but it still was, you know, that shouldn't be happening. So they decided to hook up a monitor to her to monitor her even closer in me, because they were like, okay, maybe it's the way it's positioned that it's misreading or something like that. Well, no, hours and hours went on and her heart rate was still dropping. So they were beginning to become concerned because I hadn't dilated much, and her heart rate was dropping. So they were like, okay, at this point, we don't know if her umbilical cord is wrapped around her neck if she's holding it or what's going on in there, because we can't really see that, and we really wouldn't know until you give birth to kind of see what's happening there. But just worst case scenario, be prepared to have a cesarean. So I was like, okay, like I understood that, but obviously I wanted to kind of push her out myself. So I wanted to try to wait as long as I could before having to make the decision to have a cesarean. So we waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, and the same thing was happening. Like, it wasn't really getting worse, but it wasn't getting better, because her heart rate was still dropping. So they ended up putting me on oxygen to see if maybe I wasn't breathing enough or she wasn't getting enough oxygen, which she ended up liking the oxygen. So they were like, okay, she seemed to like the oxygen. Whenever they would take it off of me, they would see those dips happen a little bit more. So they were like, okay, we're gonna they kept me with the oxygen. So after about 16 hours of labor, my doctor, he was coming in to check on me, but he was like, okay, we might need to start considering a cesarean at this point, because once it approaches the 18th hour post your water breaking, it becomes a little dangerous for baby and for you, because they can get an infection with, fluid there. So I was like kind of getting disappointed. I was texting my mom and everyone. They were like, they had been telling me to go ahead and have the C-section, because what are you really waiting for? There hasn't been really much change. And I had gotten up to 7 centimeters dilated, and that was kind of like it. And it was approaching the 18th hour, and they were like, if we wait any longer, this could go left really quick. So I was like, okay. So, they gave me time to process that. And honestly, I wasn't like sad about it. I was just kind of like, oh, I really want to wait to, I want to just kind of like push her. I want to give like a natural birth, which I was like, I don't want to harm her either. I want to do what's best. I want to be smart about it. But if that is what it takes, then that's just what it takes, because, God is in control here. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and have the C-section, because I don't want anything to go way left just because I want to like push her out. So I made the decision. That started prepping me, for surgery, and we went. So around 11 o'clock is when they started prepping me. We started going into the OR, the operating room, and getting ready to have the baby. So nervous. I've never had surgery before. I've never even been to the hospital. Well, maybe like once or twice in my life to visit a family member who had a baby or something like that, but I've never been to a hospital, let alone been admitted into a hospital or had any type of surgery. So I was like nervous about what to expect and what was gonna happen. Like, you hear all these stories about childbirth, and I was just like, you know what, Lord, just help me be calm and help this process run smoothly, because already it's been a little bouncy just trying to get her here. So I'm just like, okay, here we go. Let's just do this. So I get into the OR. The doctors were amazing. And that's one thing. The doctors and nurses were phenomenal. Like, my delivery and postpartum, the doctors and nurses were immaculate. I honestly, this is a sidebar, I was expecting an experience where the doctors and nurses kind of just come in, do their job, and go, not really build rapport. They all tended to me like they had known me forever, and I felt so good about that, because it made me feel comfortable with, obviously being in the delivering and being a first-time mom and not knowing what to expect. Like, they made the process so easy. So I commend the nurses and doctors at my hospital for that, and I told them that. Back to the story. So we get in the operating room, child. I had an epidural already, but they had to give me, I guess, like some type of numbing medicine or whatever to prepare for the cesarean. And whatever they gave me, I don't know if it was the epidural or the numbing medicine. Child, I literally started to get so cold. My body literally started to shake, like uncontrollably. Like I thought something was happening to me. So one of the doctors was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay," but I'm like so cold. Like I started to get scared because I'm like, am I supposed to be shaking this much? So they gave me a warm blanket and put over my body. I was still shaking. And I started to feel the pressure of them, you know, delivering the baby, which I was not expecting naturally. So I was like, okay, this can't be right. So I'm telling the doctor that I feel pressure, like, and they're like, okay, that's normal to feel pressure, you know, talking me through the process or whatever, but it still was making me super, super nervous. Was like so uncomfortable. Child, I was like, this can't be right. But I will say that you don't, the most you feel is the pressure. Like that's the most, and that they can't do anything about the pressure that you feel, but you just have to go with it. So they delivered the baby, and as they're delivering her, I started to get a fever. So they were, you know, trying to, I hear this stuff happening in the room, but I'm not like fully aware of what everything is happening. Definitely not that I'm getting a fever, but they were like, okay, we have to give her whatever to bring down the fever. I think it was magnesium or something like that. I don't know. So I get a fever, they deliver the baby, and they're like, do you want to see her? Y'all, I was literally afraid. I was scared of her. When they first delivered Kari and showed her to me, I was scared. I think it was because of everything that was happening in the room and the fact that I was already on those medicines. I was in shock because of everything, how fast it was happening. And I was just like, no, like my body is shaking uncontrollably. I'm cold. I feel this pressure. This baby is looking at me. She's blinking. this human, because it's not registering to me that this is my child. I was like, no, I can't. This is too much. So I'm just like looking at her terrified, because I was like, this is a human looking at me, like blinking, eyes wide open, that I've never seen before. So I was like, okay. They, you know, did her vitals measurements and stuff like that, and King was, you know, tending to her. He goes to like tend to her, get pictures and stuff like that, but I think he was concerned for me because he didn't know what was happening to me, and the doctors were telling him to make sure that I stayed up to talk to me, and I think that worried him, because he was like, if she closed her eyes, is she coming back? Is she gonna wake back up? So we're like talking, and I'm like, don't talk to me right now. Like, I think I snapped on him in there, and I was just like, this is something I was not expecting. Although I was not expecting it, it really wasn't bad as I felt like it was. And I just think it was because I had not prepared for that. And obviously this was my first time, so I didn't know. So after all that happens, we go into our postpartum room, and it was like 5 a.m. already. So on the 8th. So I had already been into labor all that time and gone through delivery. It was just a lot. So come to find out, the reason why her heart rate was dropping was because her face was turned to the side. So she was trying to get into the birth canal, you know, to come out, but her face was turned to the side. So whenever she would try to wiggle her way down to where she needed to be, she was stressing herself. She was stressing herself to get into the position, and she couldn't because her face kept hitting the bone. So I was like, oh my God, like I wanted to cry. Even when I like tell the story now, I like want to cry, because I'm like, this whole time that I was waiting for her to get in position, she was trying to, but she couldn't because of how she was positioned. Her face was turned to the side, and she kept hitting that bone, and it wasn't happening, which made sense because I would feel her more on my right side, on my like on that bone. Like I felt her there, and I was just like, okay, maybe this is normal. Like she's rested on my right side the whole time. Like she knows what she's doing. So I didn't think too much of it. I don't know if that's something that could have been adjusted if I would have mentioned it before, but that is why that is why she her heart rate was dropping. So I was like, it made me feel bad. And then after delivery, because I had a fever, they had to take her to the NICU for the first 24 hours to just make sure that she didn't get an infection because of the fact that I had gotten a fever. So they wanted to monitor that to make sure that she was okay. And thank God, nothing was wrong with her. Everything was fine. Obviously, my fever came down, and they monitored me for the same 24 hours to make sure nothing drastic was changing with my health, but everything was fine. So that was good, and I thank God that she got here safely, and I was, healthy and okay. So that was a plus. It was kind of like sad that first 24 hours without her, because I couldn't go to see her because I was, on bed rest, and she was away from me in the NICU, so I didn't get to see her or have that skin to skin contact in time. So it made me feel bad that I was startled when I seen her, but I was like, I couldn't control that. It just happened naturally. But when she did finally come down, which was the next morning, it was like it was bliss. Like I remember it like it was yesterday, and like I want to go back and relive it because that's how much I felt a change. And I remember I was in the shower, and we were waiting for her like all day. Like we were like, they said they're gonna there's the next day, so I'm thinking the next morning, not a full 24 hours. And I was like waiting for her. I was calling the NICU. The nurse was like, yeah, I just talked to mom. Like I was calling every hour. King he could go see her, so he went to see her, and he would feed her during her feedings and change her and stuff because he could stay as long as he wanted. But I couldn't, so he would just FaceTime me, and I would just, watch them. But when they finally did bring her, it was 10 a.m. the morning of the 8th, or technically like the 9th. And she was I was in the shower, and I was like, she's in the room right now. I took the quickest, like, hurry up. I could barely move because of the procedure, but I was like going as fast as I could because I was like, no, my baby's in there. I need to see her, touch her, love on her. And when I seen her, I was just like, oh my God, like, this is my child. This is my baby. Like, she's going home with us. And she was just sitting there looking so peaceful and just so sweet. And it was literally love at first sight. Like, I just could not imagine. I could not believe that this human I was carrying for 9 months, and then now here we are. So we stayed in the hospital for 2 days, and they were trying to keep us a third day, but I was like, I need to go home. Like, I'm healthy enough. You guys have been monitoring me, and everything is normal and fine, so there's no reason for you to keep me. I can go home. So we went home after 2 days, and life is bliss. So I'm so blessed, and I feel so lucky to have given birth to a healthy child and to be healthy myself, and just to have been able to go through this process. Like, I genuinely feel blessed and so grateful for it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys for the first time, second or third, fourth time for some people, to Kari Imade. I want you guys to see her cute outfit. You gonna tell people bye? No? No? You ready to eat? Okay. It's time to eat. Bye, guys.